Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Could Taylor Swift help you pray better? And do you care what some Christian podcasters or theologians or priests think of Taylor Swift's newest album? Well, if you do, this is the perfect episode for you. Guys, today we will be discussing and reviewing Taylor Swift's newest album, The Tortured Poets Department. That might be the first time that I said it right. I always want to say Tortured Poets Society for some reason, but it is Tortured Poets Department. Guys, this is going to be a fantastic episode. This was kind of like a last minute thing. Like T Swift dropped this idea that she's going to drop an album, and I immediately texted my favorite Swifties that I know, which aren't young girls, but rather some bearded theologians, and one of their wives. I was like, hey, guys, let's jump on and let's talk about T Swift. And of course, their reaction was immediately, hell yeah, we're talking about T Swift. Oh man, y'all, we realize this is a little bit outside of like maybe people's expectations. But I think it's going to be a fun episode. We're going to talk some about like the theology of like how we think about Psalms and songs. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift's album and what is fun about it, what's not fun about it, what we love, what we didn't love, how we feel about Taylor Swift's music in general. And we're honestly just going to hang out and have a good time. I'm Joshua Noel, one of your hosts. I'm here with former host and expert guest, maybe the most common guest, Brandon Knight, the host of My Seminary Life. I should have done applause. Wait a minute. Let me. I can try that again.
You have a soundboard?
The host of My Seminary Life.
Wow. Check that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Also here with his wife, Claire Knight.
Hello.
And your favorite, one of your favorite guests, your favorite Orthodox returning guest. I think that's probably accurate for this show. Father Jonathan of the Holy Trinity Orthodox Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. I say church, it's cathedral, right? Holy Trinity
it's a cathedral.
Orthodox Cathedral. Yeah. And he was on before for a very closely related episode talking about D&D, which is pretty much the same thing as Taylor Swift. Welcome back, man.
It's just as complicated.
Oh, man. Yeah. If you can't tell, I'm really excited. I'm feeling really goofy for this episode. I'm drinking a beer, guys. I'm having a prenup peanut butter from the Legal Remedy Brewery. Why am I telling you this? Because if you care about theology, fun, and beer, then you can go to Theology Beer Camp 2024 in Denver, Colorado, and you can meet some of us there, myself specifically. You can have a beer with me, talk theology and nerd stuff. We're going to be running a geek stage down there. So check it out and use the code Geekshire, all one word, GEEKSHIRE. You get a discount, you help the show, and you get to go hang out with us and talk nerd and theology. It'll be good stuff. So make sure you check us out over there. If you're listening to this on the podcast, rate and review. If you're on YouTube, smash the like and subscribe button, or else you're smashing Will's heart, and no one wants to do that because that's just mean. Will's so kind. You might as well smash that like button and subscribe. And we're going to shout out a supporter of the show real quick. Jeannie Mattingly, thank you so much for sponsoring our show. You rock. With that, guys, real quick, we're not going to do what you're geeking out on. Other than this album, what music are you listening to lately? Brandon?
I have been listening to a group called Liturgical Folk. They do, they write hymns and do psalms, blessings, and prayers that are in the Catholic Church, but they set them to like that folk Americana style music. So that's been interesting. It's been good.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Claire, what about you? What other than Taylor Swift, what have you been listening to lately?
That's
it. That's
more
all
Taylor Swift.
No,
Extra Taylor
I
Swift.
actually have been listening a lot of Citizens. It's a Christian band, but not lame, I guess you could say. I don't know. I like their sound.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What's weird is like I felt that way when Ren Collective first started getting popular. And it's funny because it's like it's very Christian. But I think part of it is like it wasn't apologetic about it. Like a lot of modern Christian music, it's almost like apologizing for being Christian music. Like it's trying to sound like it's not Christian music. And I like that Ren Collective was like, nah, this is Christian. We're going to sound Christian and it's fine. They're just honest about it, you know? Don't try to fool me into thinking this is rap. Sorry. Father Jonathan, what have you been listening to lately other than Taylor Swift?
It's nothing in particular. I found like this, like I clicked on like a cover of some band. I don't know what it was in particular the first time. And now my YouTube algorithm is like flooded with these covers. So I just I keep listening to these playlists of covers on YouTube.
Oh, man, one of my favorites. This is a little bit random. In Scrubs, at the janitor's wedding, they do an acoustic version of "Hey Now," and it's like it sounds like a real love song until he gets the "Hey ladies, what's colder than cool?" And you're like, oh, okay, this is not a real acoustic love song.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Lately, I've been listening to Noah Kahn, talking about that like Americana folk music. I really like his stuff. It's like if Passenger was American, so a little less artistic, a little bit more angry. And sometimes I vibe with that. Sometimes I am a little bit more angry than Passenger is. He's my favorite artist, but sometimes I'm like, listen, man, you're not angry enough at the world.
You should be angrier.
Yeah, come on. What's wrong with you? And it's really funny because he actually wrote a song specifically talking about like how Donald Trump is like the worst. And it still just didn't feel that angry. It just felt like him saying this guy is bad. And I'm like, okay, but like, are you mad about it though?
You're mad about it.
Come on. Oh man. Anyway, with that, let's jump into today's episode. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift, the Torture Poets Department. Man, I'm excited for this. Before we get too far into it, though, what like as we talked about like what we're listening to recently, but like as far as like genre goes, is there like a genre of music that's like typically what you gravitate towards? I think mine's pretty obvious. So I'll just go ahead and start because like I mentioned Passenger and Noah Kahn. Like I like that folky Americana. When I first started working at Chipotle, there was like a joke about like they like made memes of me because I was always in the back doing dishes, listening to the saddest songs. And it's true. I love doing dishes, listening to sad songs. Like, I think it's great.
I thought you were going to say that you were vibing to the music that they play at Chipotle's, which is by far the weirdest music out there. Chipotle's have the
that is accurate
restaurant music.
I went to Chipotle on Sunday and they had that music up like it was a club. I was like, what is going on in here? It is the middle of the lunch rush.
There's one for some reason that only happens at night. Sorry, I work at Chipotle for those who don't know. And for some reason it only happens at night. And like, it's literally just them going, what? Like, what is this? It's just someone screaming. That's all this is.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's awful. Brandon, other than just random screaming at Chipotle, what kind of genre of music do you typically gravitate toward?
Typically, I do not listen to the like pop stuff that like kind of Taylor Swift. I do like Taylor Swift, but I'm usually more on the alternative side of things, a little bit more like a pop punk emo kid. So My Chemical Romance, Green Day, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco,
Good stuff.
even like grunge, like Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, things like that.
Ooh.
Which
Brandon just wanted to list the best musical artists of the 90s. That's all.
basically,
He got the wrong question.
which, you know, Taylor Swift does do a song with Florence from Florence and the Machine on this album,
Mhm.
who also would be a part of that like alternative scene. And she's done a lot of work with a lot of alternative artists. So I'm ready for the Taylor Swift pop punk album.
Oh, man, I actually like the song she did with the Panic at the Disco guy, even though he's been
Brendan,
canceled
I
for
love
good
that
reasons.
song. I don't care what anyone
Yeah.
says.
Me too. I also really enjoy it. That's me, right? That's like the name's me. I love that one. Man, yeah, good stuff. I was trying to think. Oh, I'm actually really non-discriminatory. Really, I was thinking about it because like I don't not listen to pop. I actually just last year discovered Sugar Ray because I wasn't allowed to listen to music that wasn't Christian growing up.
Okay.
Or was it the year before? It was very recently. I love him though. I've been on a binge. For me, it's new music, so it's like this is great. Everybody else is like, Josh, that got old 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's fine. Father Jonathan, what do you typically gravitate towards as far as like music genres and stuff?
I don't know what genre to fall into, but I I really was into Mumford and Sons for a long time. So I guess that kind of folky, semi-spiritual type music. Bon Iver, a lot of the 90s stuff that was already mentioned. That's what I listened to when I was growing up. Early 2000s, early 2000s rock and stuff like that. Foo Fighters. I was really big into Foo Fighters in
played
various
Foo Fighters song at my wedding.
stages.
Man, good stuff. Yeah, we played Foo Fighters song at my wedding. Also, the Bon Iver song with Taylor Swift, "Exile." One of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. It's so good.
Yeah.
Claire, what kind of genre do you typically gravitate towards?
Taylor Swift. No. It's definitely a lot of pop.
I love Claire's
music.
role in this episode.
I just like Taylor Swift because she makes different genres of music. So duh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Someone said one time that she is the music industry because she touches every aspect of it, every genre.
They're not wrong.
I do like listening to a lot of pop from like when I was like a kid.
Sugar Ray.
I'll put on like pop from the 2000s and 2010s.
Sugar Ray?
Not Sugar Ray, so sorry.
Aw.
I like Lady Gaga a lot. She's good.
That's fair.
I like Olivia Rodrigo. Mostly popular artists, but I'm also into pop punk. Grew up listening to Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco.
Oh, man. I'm gonna throw out one of my I according to Christian Ashley, I'm entitled to at least one bad opinion per episode.
And according to Joe Day,
it's in the name.
Nothing but bad opinions.
Yeah. So, be prepared for just awful opinions at this moment forward.
Fantastic.
I did not like the song she did with Florence Pugh. And I was so upset because like in my mind, I'm going to this album and there's a song called Florida. And I'm like, hold up, that's my state. I love Florida. All I wanted was to love that song because Taylor Swift's talking about my state. Like that's where I grew up. It's like my favorite place to be. And I'm like, this song kind of sucks. Like I just did not like it.
That's a bad opinion.
It is. I like the Taylor Swift part. And as soon as the other lady started singing, I was like, I don't want to listen to the rest of this track.
You don't like Florence and the Machine?
I like other songs they did, but for some reason in that song, I'm just like, I've tried like 3 or 4 times because I want to convince myself. I'm trying to gaslight myself into liking it, but I just can't yet.
If you can't gaslight yourself into liking it, maybe you can try hypnotizing yourself.
I'll gaslight you.
I need something. maybe I can get Father Jonathan to pray for me until I like.
I'll pray for you, honestly.
What's so funny is like my wife likes it a lot. She likes that song a lot. And I'm like, man, I really wish I did, because like we go camping on like this island off the Florida Georgia coast every year, and like I create a playlist, and I was like, I can't wait, I'm gonna put the song Florida on there and listen to it. Like it's not gonna make it to the playlist. It's just not doing it.
They say Florida a couple times in Fortnite, so maybe
Yeah, I think that one's gonna make it, because I did like Fortnite. Fortnite was good. Is that? I thought Claire was tell me that was a bad opinion too. Like that's also wrong.
brace for impact.
just waiting for it.
The reason why Florida is mentioned so much is because between the Florida and like Texas shows is kind of when like Joe's the breakup with Joe became like public and all that stuff. So that's why. I think that's why there's a lot of
that makes sense.
Mention of Florida.
I wonder if it had I was wondering if it had anything to do with Matty Healy. I was like, does he have a connection to Florida somehow that I just don't know about? Anyway, so that makes sense. I am going to go back to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk specifically our history with Taylor Swift's music. Let's let Claire start. Claire has been waiting to talk about Taylor Swift. So when did you just always
she's
listen
not
to
waiting.
Taylor Swift? Or
she just talks Taylor Swift. She just gets to do it on a podcast now.
Yeah, like a microphone to talk about it now. It's very exciting. Actually, the first album that I listened to like in its entirety was 1989. So that's what kind of got me into it first. And like I, heard some of her like the very mainstream songs, and I never disliked them. But 1989 was the first time I was like, oh, who's this Taylor Swift? Let me listen to her some more. But then, of course, she, went on a however many year hiatus after 1989. So my favorite album is Reputation. But I don't know. Now I just listen to all of it. I have a playlist that is it's just every single Taylor Swift song so that I can just put it on shuffle. And like, I don't know. I just like that she's got so many different, like with the different genres or different like moods of the songs. Like I feel like I can find no matter like what kind of music mood I'm in, unless it's like pop punk or something, like I can find something that she sings that fits my mood. So like, why do I need to listen to anything else,
All right. That checks out, I guess. Father Jonathan, how about you? Like you mentioned on the Whole Church podcast, this is how this started. You mentioned that you were a Swiftie, and I was like, I need to know more about this. Father Jonathan just like be vibing with Taylor Swift.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the beginning. I think I somehow got connected to like one of the songs from her first album, the self-named one. And I started listening to it, and then so I wasn't like a super fan or anything back then, but I like the songs. I'm always someone who appreciates good storytelling in music, and like she has a very beautiful ability to tell a story that can connect to people. Mm-hmm. So even though it was like angsty, like 15-year-old girl music in those first couple of albums, I still found it very, very great. And I think what really did it for me is there was one summer, it must have been the Speak Now album, because I went on a pilgrimage as part of like seminary. It was like right after I graduated with my Master of Divinity. And they send us on a pilgrimage. We started in Paris and then made our way eventually to Greece. And we were in Greece for like a month and a half. And then we went to Turkey. And then I went to Palestine, where my good friend got married. I was the best man at his wedding, which happened to be in Bethlehem. And so I was gone for like 3 months one summer. And I was in Thessaloniki, Greece. That was like our longest stay in one place in Greece. I was taking classes in Greek at the Aristotle University, which is in Thessaloniki. And I just had like a month and a half, 2 months since I'd been there. And I just found myself like kind of like nostalgic, homesick. even though I was with like a group of some of my best friends, like my friend who was getting married and my other friend who ended up being the best man at his wedding too. We were all there together. It was great, but so I think I started listening to the album, and then like I had a bunch of the music videos that I was listening to, and like it was I had missed because that year she was on tour for that album, and I had missed the Boston show because I'm originally from just outside of Boston, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to see her because I was going to be in Greece that whole time. But I was coming back in time to make the Philadelphia show. And so I bought tickets while I was in Greece, and I like asked my cousin who was in med school in Philadelphia if she wanted to go with me. And so we went. We got floor seats at the Eagles Stadium. And the best part was it was like at that time early enough in her career where most of her fans were like teenage girls, and I'm like 6 foot, and so I'm standing floor level at a sea of like 12, 13-year-old girls. So I'm like a foot taller than everyone. So I had like a perfect view. And she like, and we were right by the secondary stage when she would do those like acoustic sets in the back. And so I was like 20 feet away from her.
Great.
And then she walked by like within like 6 feet of me, which was really cool. And I was just like, it was a great experience. And it was an album that I really connected with. And then, I think it might've been a little bit earlier, like an earlier album that, like I connected with some of the lyrics as like I was getting into a new relationship, and then that relationship like abruptly ended, and it was a relationship where we both liked Taylor Swift, and then like all of a sudden the other half of the album started to hit me in the feels, and then I think it's carried me through a couple breakups, including my most recent one, and now I can listen to those albums, and it like I think like Hours really like hit me because it was like that. I had like some of the experience you described in that song were ones that I had with the girlfriend I had at the time, and then the relationship had ended, and I just remember like listening to it, and it's like I totally get this whole experience. And now I listen back and like my mind goes there sometimes. My mind goes to like other relationships that I had, and there's a nostalgia that it like her music brings to me, just from like all the experiences I had in all the places around the world that I've been when I listen to her, and then also just kind of the stories that she tells that not in every way, but in many ways resonate with my own experiences.
Yeah. Brandon, could you cover your first reaction with Taylor Swift?
I know we're here to talk about Taylor Swift, but like Father Jonathan's whole flex about going on a pilgrimage and going around Europe on a pilgrimage and learning Greek where you should probably learn Greek was all very like, I wish I had that. Anyway, so for me, when it comes to the Swiftie stuff, I was a little bit more of like that stereotype. Well, first off, wasn't really into country music. Still really not into country music unless it's like in the form of Johnny Cash or something. So like the really early Taylor Swift never really, other than like the radio hit stuff, never really like caught my attention. But sadly, I was that stereotypical guy who was like, Taylor Swift is for girls. I will listen to other stuff that is for boys, because apparently music can be gendered. It shouldn't be, but we sadly do that. But it stopped being gendered when I was in college. And it was probably because I was around a lot of healthier people. I had healthier people in my life by that point. I was in college when Red and 1989 came out. It was like the beginning of college was when Red came out, and it was the end of college when 1989 came out. And I just remember like everybody liked Taylor Swift, and I was like, oh, I can like listen to, and I can listen to this, and like I won't be judged for it, and that's kind of cool because this, Red was the album where it shifted to more of like the pop sound, and especially at 1989 is when it shifted more pop and away from the country sound, and I was really enjoying the music then. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I can start listening to this music and again, I shouldn't have never have thought that way, but I do think a lot of guys kind of had that mentality early on and have kept up with the Taylor Swift music ever since, especially since Claire is such a big Swiftie. You actually didn't mention your Taylor Swift news for later this year.
Oh yeah, I'm going to the Eras tour in
What?
Indianapolis.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. My wife got to
can't
go when it was in
disclose
Nashville.
the amount of money that I paid for the ticket because Brandon doesn't want to know. So
That's fair. I understand that.
Because you can only get 4 tickets. I sadly will not be going. I was the odd man out, but we did go see the Eras Tour concert movie when it was in theaters, and then we have watched the Taylor's version on Disney Plus. I still think it's silly, but I understand why, because apparently it was like a rating issue thing because she drops F-bombs in her music. But so I've seen the concert movie version, but she does get to go in November.
Actually, something my wife mentioned that was really interesting to me is how Taylor went from like not saying any bad words to now all of her explicit songs are explicit specifically because she drops the F-bomb. Like she doesn't use other swear words that much, but she likes that word for some reason.
It's a powerful word.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't have anything wrong with it. I'm not going to say it on a live stream because, people haven't been warned on YouTube. There wasn't an explicit rating. They need to be warned before I... Anyway,
if he could warn them, he would say it so much.
Yeah, every other word.
Don't worry, because there's going to be this episode Josh's version where
I'll have Josh's version, and it's just gonna I'm just gonna edit in myself going F. Oh god. Anyway, I have such a weird history with Taylor Swift. I feel like I remember like appreciating her, but not really like being super into it early on. Even like Our Love Song was the first one I remember thinking was like just a fantastic song. I was really into that one. I enjoyed that one a lot. But it wasn't until 1989 came out. I was living in Charleston. I was in college at the time, and it wasn't quite as a joke, but it was all like, I don't know how to explain this. It was a bit. There was a whole bit around me getting the 1989 album, because at the time, I was one of those who's just really irritated that there's this expectation that men aren't supposed to like fun pop music by Taylor Swift or anything like that. It was only for girls. I'm like, actually, some of this is pretty good. And I don't like when expectations are put on me. So I immediately have to destroy them. And then pair that with the Bible study I had going at the time when I was in Charleston. Involved one guy named Lee, who I could not explain to you why. I literally just couldn't explain to you, but people would just see him and for some reason assume he was racist. It happened pretty frequently. It made no sense to any of us. And one of our other friends, who everyone he was a African man who dressed like he was from certain kind of neighborhoods. So everyone made those kind of assumptions about him. And we said, it'd be fun if us three went together at midnight when 1989 drops to Walmart, and we just bought that album and blared it in our car, because no one would expect this particular group of people, A, to be together at all, or B, to be listening to Taylor Swift. So we just kind of did it for the bit. And we went in and we all jammed. We loved that album. I was so glad it was good, because if you stay up to midnight and you're like doing this whole thing for a bit and then like the music sucked, that would have been awful.
That would have been rough.
Yeah. But like we went in, we all loved it. It was a great album. I still love that album. Into the Woods was great. We had a role-playing game that Out of the Wood. Thank you. We had a role-playing game where there's a certain character storyline lined up so perfectly to the song Bad Blood, that we were able to play it while doing basically Dungeons and Dragons. We played that song and everyone was like, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. like the bullet hole lines and everything. Everyone's like, wait a minute, all of this happened. And we're like, yeah, Taylor Swift knows about the game, guys. It was perfect. It was so much fun. And then, like you mentioned, at the time, I still don't really follow Taylor Swift's life. I just liked her music. My wife follows a little bit more of her life, so I'm a little bit more cued in now to like what some of the songs mean. But I remember there was a long time. I wasn't a huge fan of Rep. Like for me, it was just kind of For some reason, I want Passenger to be angry, but when Taylor gets angry, I'm like, I don't care about that anger. You're not angry about the
I think
things
you just
I'm
had your
angry about.
second bad opinion in someone's eyes. I could see it in her face.
I'm just dropping bad opinions like they're hot. But they then Folklore. When Folklore came out, I went from casual Taylor fan, which I think I'm still a casual fan, but I listened to that album religiously. I love that album. Invisible Strings is like, I listen to that probably at least once a week. I think that song is just phenomenal. It hits me in all the right, like that song is like, man, I sound weird, but for saying vibe, but like I vibe with that so much. I'm like, that song is like, it's connected to me on a spiritual level. And I'm like, this is good. This is good stuff. So yeah,
do you feel the same way about Evermore, or is it very specifically Folklore?
I like Evermore, but I didn't love it like I loved Folklore. Like I love Folklore. Evermore I liked. I didn't love it.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Claire. Claire's like, wow, this guy and his bad opinion.
No, it's okay.
She's like, man, Joe was right. All of his opinions suck.
Okay.
Oh man. So anyway, that out of the way. Let's go just straight to the album. The Torture Poets Department. What was your first reaction to this one, Father Jonathan? What was your first thoughts when you listened to this album?
So I listened to it. First of all, I was like super frustrated because I happened to be up when it came out, and so I downloaded it, and then like the next day, the second part of the album dropped, so I had to buy 2 albums, which is fine. It's fine. But I remember, the first song is Fortnite, and I'm like, it had this like Lana Del Rey vibe to it, and like even in the the tone of it, and I don't think I ever actually heard like Post Malone sing, and I was like really surprised by it. And so, kind of going into it, I had this like moment of like, I don't know how I feel about this because it's kind of got like a different vibe, but then it kind of like reminded me a little bit of like Snow on the Beach. Is that the one? Yeah, that she did with Lana Del Rey, and just kind of like the tone and the enunciation. And as I moved into it, I felt it was each one struck me, and like I could definitely feel a lot of the feelings along with it, even though like I couldn't quite, like I'm not at a place in life where like all of that resonates with me. But I had an experience where like I could definitely, I felt like I was listening to people that like come to me for spiritual guidance and stuff like that, and like the types of feelings that they describe to me, and I may not have had those experiences that she's describing in the different songs, but I've definitely felt what those feelings feel like, and so there was a resonance there, despite maybe having less of the same experiences that she's describing as I have in previous albums.
Yeah.
Did you know Systematic Geekology has a YouTube channel? Now you do. And while you're there, you can see exclusive stuff like our comic book catch-up series, Manga Mustard, Drinks with Tejas, the companion series to our annual theme. You can go Friday Night Frights with me, where I go through cryptozoology, ufology, and more. You can also go to see Spidey Swing-Bys, where I'm doing every chronological appearance by release of Spider-Man from Amazing Fantasy 15 all the way to the modern age. You can also find exclusive shorts on YouTube there, as well as other bonuses for extra episodes that we do that don't end up on the podcast proper. So I want to see you over there on YouTube.
So for me, because my wife was staying up anyway, very intentionally stayed up till midnight to listen to this thing. I was like, this is going to be great, right? And she'd been dropping hints about 2 forever. And for some reason, we had this idea that because a fortnight is 2 weeks, we were like, oh, in 2 weeks, she's going to do something. We were wrong, but whatever. Because Taylor Swift, like it was said on somewhere, like I saw a meme that was like, we're just all should be glad Taylor Swift is an artist and not a serial killer. And I'm like, that's true. Because the way she does like details and stuff, you're like, she probably could be. Yeah, as far as we know.
I would really like to read like a book or a comic.
That's the fanfic we all really need. Yeah, Taylor Swift, the serial killer.
Well, like No Body, No Crime.
Well, yeah, that's
let us know how it would happen.
That should be our next album.
Or Out of the Woods, that like allegedly. No, that.
Yes, there's
Vehicular manslaughter.
supposedly hints in some of her songs that Taylor Swift and Harry Styles committed vehicular manslaughter, and I've covered it up.
And sorry, we just got you demonetized.
Definitely
That's,
fascinated.
That's a popular fan theory.
Am I now an accomplice? Is that
No, what?
There's millions of accomplices if that's the case.
Sorry. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, so when the first part came out at midnight, I was a little disappointed. Mostly because like Tortured Poets Department, to me, I was like, this has got to be like Folklore Evermore happening again. Because like just like the title, like it sounds like it's going to be artistic, it's going to be great. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is just like Diet Midnights. What's happening here?
Interesting.
Because I don't know. I just didn't want all pop. And some of the songs in the first part, especially re-listening to it, I love. But if I'm just talking about my first initial reactions, I was like, man, this isn't Folklore Part 2. You know? Then the next day when I listened to the second part, I was like, man, she saved the best part of the album for last. And then as I've re-listened to it a few more times, I'm like, okay, wait, there's songs I really like on both sides. I really appreciate. Still not one of my favorite albums, but I really appreciate it. There's some songs I really love that are probably going to be my top Taylor songs later on. I do this thing where like I overcorrect, or I'm so scared of recency bias that I just assume I don't like any of this until recency is passed. Brandon, you go.
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
You go first.
We got to say the best for last. Brandon,
so I'm saving the best for last. There we go. So I actually just finished listening to it before we got on.
Perfect.
I'm also still very confused as to how many songs and was it intentionally 2 albums, and I'm still very confused about all of the detailed stuff. I know that online there is, I don't know if you've been keeping your ear to the ground, but online there is a lot of discourse. It's a very polarizing album. It seems like there's people who hate it. There's people who say it's her best album. I walked away from it thinking it was fine. I don't think there was really, for me, I don't think there was really anything like, oh my gosh, this is like a mind-blowing song. And there wasn't really anything necessarily like, oh, this is trash. Like, I don't like all.
What about the Florida song?
No, I like the Florida song. I don't.
You're wrong about that one, Josh. I'm sorry.
It's funny that you say that it's Diet Midnights. I was getting more like 1989 with, there was like one, But Daddy I Love Him was like, oh, there's a little bit of country kind of splashed in here. A little bit of country Taylor splashed in here. And that I did like, how she kind of like splashed a little bit of her roots in there, even though, again, I don't really like country music. It was mentioned earlier by some of y'all that like, you know, the songs that are about like the breakups are like the ones that like really resonate with you. For me, like those songs are good. I'll share an unpopular opinion. The Taylor's version of the We Hate Jake Gyllenhaal song is the 10-minute version is incredibly too long. But for me, it's the songs about identity that have really connected with me. The Man is my favorite Taylor Swift song, followed up by Antihero. Those are like my 2 favorite songs.
That's fair. Really, I don't agree, but that's fair.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry you don't agree with my favorite songs. You tell me what my favorite songs should be.
No, I mean, like they're not my favorites, but I'm like, I definitely can see where you would resonate with those.
Yeah,
like, that makes a lot of sense. Those are good songs.
And at least upon listening to it one time through now, again, I think it's fine. But there wasn't really any songs that were like that identity focused, at least upon the first listening, that really caught my attention. So when I go back and re-listen to it a few more times, maybe one of them will stick out a little bit more. It's definitely not her worst. I don't know if Taylor Swift has a bad album. I mean, again, the country music one is just not my favorite style, and she was young when she wrote it. So like, yeah, it's going to appeal to a very certain group, and that's perfectly fine. I would say the people who are saying that it is her best might be a recency bias thing. And I definitely agree with you, Josh, on the recency bias thing, because I really like 1989, but Midnight like really got like I really liked Midnights when it first came out, and I was like, no, this is just recency. But now I'm like, okay, no, I do really like this one too.
Yeah.
I thought that I overreacted to Midnights when I was like, I don't like this one. And as time's passed, I realized I just don't like Midnights that much. Yeah, I don't know why. It's not a particular reason. It's not like I'm like, oh, this one sucks. It just didn't click with me. I don't know why. Claire, what are your thoughts on Torture Poets Department? Initial thoughts.
Well, unlike you amateurs, I knew that Taylor Swift was going to do something in the middle of the night because that's just her style. And so I, knowing that this was
Middle
going
of
to
the
be
night.
an emotional roller coaster, got a full night of sleep the night before so I could wake up rested and fully be able to absorb this album because I knew it was going to be
Smart.
rough, which it was. I got home, I listened to it at work and stuff, and I got home and I was exhausted. It was like, I just feel like I'm emotionally spent. I will say I personally like the first half better than the second. I feel like there is a point in the second half where I was just like, hold on. And this might be just because it's the second half. And so I had listened to so many songs, but like, I just was like, is this a new song? Are we still singing the same song? Did she do another 10-minute song?
Oh yeah.
A few of them
But
did
I
like
think
run into
then
each other.
going back and like shuffling and listening to it on shuffle and not necessarily in order, I'm like, oh, okay. When it's not like 4 sad, slow songs in a row, I think I like it a little bit more. I think it just got to a point where I was like, Taylor, I think I'm going to need some therapy after this. And can you pay for my therapy? Because you're a billionaire. So, and you did this to me.
It's true. She
But
is the music industry, as Father Jonathan
she is
said.
the music industry.
That's now an ordained statement.
I will
That's a joke, everybody.
I will say I listened to the manuscript on the way home from work, and it was like I texted my future sister-in-law, and I was like, I feel like this song both broke and mended my heart at the same time. Like,
yes.
I don't know.
Accurate.
It just like for some reason I like got done listening to it and I just sat in my car in silence for a little bit.
The final track, right?
Yes.
The final track.
That one was just emotionally, that one was rough to get through.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I supposed to feel sad, happy, what? And I'm like, this is Torture Poets Department. That's what it's about.
Here's the thing. We all thought
That
we
fit
heard
the title.
Torture Poets Department, and we all thought, oh, she's, a student at Oxford and it's fall time. No.
True.
She was talking about a mental institution. We thought dark academia. She said mental hospital.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so before going on, we've kind of hinted around this topic. I want to get a little bit more before we. So here's how we're going to do the rest of this episode. And I know we're 42 minutes in, and I just wanted an excuse to say 42. Sorry, guys. We're going to discuss like how we think about songs in general, and then we're going to get into specifically. We want to talk about Guilty as Sin. I did because I think lyrically that's the one where if some people who dabble in theology at all are going to talk about this album, they have to talk about that song, in my opinion.
Oh, they are.
Then we're going to go through, and this the hard part's going to be before we rate it 0 out of 10. We're going to go through, and every one of us is going to pick 2 songs. We're going to go through in order, and every one of us gets 2 options to say, "Stop! I want to talk about that one." So in total, we're going to do 8 songs. We can't both pick the same song, so we don't know who's going to pick what because we didn't go over it beforehand. Because I thought that would be more fun. So if we go through the whole list and someone still has a song they haven't done, we might go back to a few. We'll see. Then we're going to rate it, and then we're going to wrap this up. So first, as someone who's, I personally, I'm very passionate about hermeneutics. It's something I spend a lot of time with, and that kind of just, it's something I care a lot about. And that's like how we study the Bible, how we think about the Bible. And yes, this is a Christian podcast, so we got to throw this in there. And I'm sorry, we'll still talk about, look at that. She's so pretty. Taylor Swift. But the reason this is important, because when we think about songs, it brings me back to some of how I have wrestled with biblical psalms songs, psalms, they're basically the same thing. Hang in there with me, guys.
Words you're meant to miss here.
Yeah.
Because they're not good.
I grew up Pentecostal, and it's very feeling based, very spiritual based, that kind of stuff. And I feel like when I went to college, I kind of pushed against that so much. I became too studied, too intellectual based, if that makes sense. And it wasn't until I came across a book by Donald Whitney, Praying the Bible. And he talks about going through the Psalms and saying, hey, yes, it does matter what the Psalms mean. Yes, it does matter the context that they happened in. But it's also okay and even good to just read the Psalm, and whatever you're feeling, pray to God about that. Because ultimately, songs and music and Psalms, they're about feelings. So you don't have to say, oh, this biblical passage is about my grandpa because it made you think about your grandpa. Maybe all it said was the word fish, and that made you think of fishy. What made you think of your grandpa? That's not an accurate explanation. It's not an accurate exegesis, but it's still an important feeling that you should wrestle with. And having that permission to wrestle with the Psalms in that kind of way and study it, and not study it, but to just pray about it and to just feel it, and it not have to all be in my head, but let some of it be feeling and more mystic based, changed my world. And I think the same thing can happen with Taylor Swift songs. And I know that's annoying of me, and I'm sorry. But if you go to YouTube and you look up Taylor Swift, you're going to have a million videos of people who are better at us, this kind of stuff, than we are, who are going to be like, wait a minute, she said this word here, which implies this thing about this relationship. And it means that in 2025, she's going to release this album on this date. And they might be right. They might have perfect theories on all this, because Taylor Swift actually is a psychopath who puts a lot of detail into literally every single post and word she says. She's thought it all out. And it's not that those things don't matter. The context matters. Understanding who Matt Healy is actually does help a lot with this album. When you hear about like drugs and stuff and her lover, like it's like, okay, wait, that's what she's talking about. It does help you understand what she's talking about. But I think it's equally important that I have my own feelings and you have permission when some of these words happen that maybe has nothing to do with what the song's about, triggers a feeling in me. It's okay to feel that thing. Even pray about it, talk to other people about it, and to just let the song be about something for you that maybe it wasn't about to the author. Brandon, Jonathan, Claire, do any of y'all have any other thoughts of like how we interpret songs, psalms, that kind of stuff? And like, how do we wrestle with like the meaning of psalms, like what it actually means as opposed to what it means to us? And do you have any other comments you just want to throw in there?
So, I don't know where the quote comes from, but it has been said that the Psalms are the prayer book of the church. And coming from a tradition where like the majority of our prayers even are just like different verses from different Psalms strung together to create a different meaning. I've always told people like in pastoral care that like the beautiful thing about the book of Psalms, if you can just keep reading it, it helps you cultivate a language for prayer, because every experience, every emotion that a human being can feel is present in the Psalms. Anger, fear, betrayal, sorrow, joy, hope, love, all of those things. And so I never discourage people like from searching the Psalms for something that is meaningful, but also to help them cultivate a language. I tell people that like, oh, they don't, like people say, I don't know how to like pray extemporaneously. I'm like, well, just read the Psalms until you can. But I like Josh, what you said about like this, like having permission to experience the feelings. And in my pastoral ministry, so much of what I do, because even though like we have a tradition of confession in the Orthodox Church, but I always see it as soul therapy more than anything else. I'm not there to listen to the things that people did wrong. I'm there to help them discover their wounds and traumas and provide them with pastoral care to help heal those wounds. And a lot of what I say to most people is your feelings are always real, but the stories you tell yourself about them might not be true. And so if there is something that strikes you in music and there's a feeling there, like that is that is an invitation for you to delve deep in your interior life and explore. Is it a joyful feeling, or is it a sorrowful feeling? Does it elicit anger? What's that anger trying to protect you from? What deeper wound maybe is that anger trying to protect you from? And so if a song has the capacity to do that, I think it doesn't matter who it's by and what the context is, even if it's about something completely different, it is an invitation for you to explore your interior life.
Yeah, man.
I'll hop in. So I do know that Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book on the Psalms is called Prayer Book of the Bible, just to kind of continue to double down on this idea of like the value of praying Psalms and sitting in them to help you process what you're feeling. Because, one of the many talking heads that we have heard on TikTok talk about this album was going into about how, looking at this album in particular, Torture Poets, it's a bunch of complicated feelings. Maybe Taylor Swift wasn't trying to write the next, Grammy winning album. She has enough of those awards anyway, but maybe this was just a cathartic experience for her. And I think the Psalms can definitely be a cathartic. We can find a cathartic experience by sitting in them and praying them and wrestling with them. I'm going to also circle back to one thing you said, Josh, because author original intent is something that for me is very important. And we are in a time where that's not as important. What I am thinking or experiencing about a thing, that is what it is about, and that's it. It is important, especially if you are having some kind of like religious experience with a form of art, to validate that and to grow from it. But we do have to remember what the author of the art, the creator of the art, what they were trying to communicate in that as well. So I'll just use my favorite Taylor Swift song as an example, The Man. So this is a song, for those of you who don't know, it's on the Lover album. This is a song about her experience in the music industry as a woman and all of the like extra hoops and extra labor that she has to go through in order to be on top. And that, it would be so much easier if she was a man. Like that's what it now. You might be sitting there thinking, how in the world is this your favorite song, Brandon? You're not in the music industry and everyone's happy about it and you're a man. So how is this like your favorite song? And it's because being a guy in the white American evangelical church, where there's a certain model of masculinity that is held up, this like very traditional conservative 1950s man who, goes to work full time, hunts and fishes for fun, all this like very stereotypical stuff is often what's lifted up as like, man, that's not me. I'm a stay at home dad. I have a part-time job where I'm literally a ninja coach. I do most of the cooking and cleaning during the week. I don't hunt and fish and go camping for fun. That most of those things sound miserable to me. I do other things for fun.
Yeah.
And when culture and just secular culture in general is saying one thing is masculine, and the church environment you're in is saying this is what is masculine, but then you have a song over here that's saying, hey, I wish I was a man because this would be so much simpler. I connected with it, but I can't say The Man is a song about being a beta. That's not what the song is about. I can have this like experience of like, oh, I connect with this song because like I don't like I don't like fulfill these stereotypical masculine views, but I cannot claim this song as my own, if that makes sense, because the Taylor's original purpose of this song was to be a voice for women in industries where men are usually get by easier. So that's all I wanted to kind of like bring up is like, yes,
that makes a lot of sense.
Definitely have your emotional connection, but we got to remember what the author originally meant by their art as well.
Yeah, no, I like that point a lot. And it brings me, you mentioned Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I get a mention C.S. Lewis. I'm legally obligated. I got a contract with the dead. But
the Lewis Society will come for him.
what's funny is I actually have friends that's in the C.S. Lewis Institution, but I don't think they claim me yet. No, he has a song. One of my favorites of his books. Sorry, not songs. One of my favorite of C.S. Lewis books is the reflection of on the Psalms. And it's just so random. Like, it's so outside of his wheelhouse. It's basically C.S. Lewis doing a commentary, but he's doing it as a literary expert because, his scholarship isn't in religion, it's in literature. And he brings out this idea of there being more than one truth. The Psalm had its own truth, and then maybe there's a bigger truth. And he's talking about specifically like Psalms that we now see as like, oh, that was about Jesus. Well, clearly the author didn't mean it to be about Jesus. And what the author meant was true on its own. But also there's a bigger truth that the author didn't know about that can be applicable to Jesus. But I use that even like thinking more of like the psalm. There's a psalm that's how blessed are those who take their babies and throw it against the rocks. I think there was a truth in how pissed off the Israelites were at what happened to them and that they had a right to be pissed off. And I don't think that just because that is the truth and that's what's meant by the psalm doesn't mean that I can read that and be angry at something else and it make me feel better. And that's like, oh, that's wrong of you. You weren't being oppressed by Palestinians. No, that's not the point, right? Like, I could be mad about something else and still connect to this psalm and still not think that I'm literally supposed to hope people's babies die, right? Like, all of those things can be true. Okay, Claire, did you have anything you wanted to add to this part of the conversation, or do you want us to just get to the album already? You think we're taking too long?
Don't feel qualified to add anything to this part of the conversation.
That's fair. I'm not qualified, but I talk anyway. I have a big mouth.
I'm just here for Taylor.
All right, so on to Taylor Swift. We're gonna start by talking about guilty as sin. Guys, this for me. This one, it wasn't my favorite by any means. I mean, this one's difficult. I'm going to share a Google screen so people can see the lyrics. We're going to talk about what happened in this song. This song, not psalm, sorry. First, from my understanding, this song is about a couple different things. One being maybe masturbation. Another one being
demonetization.
How can it be sin how can I be guilty without ever touching his skin? How can I be guilty of sin? So if it's just something that happens in my mind, if it's just something that's happening in my thoughts, how can that be something that makes me guilty? And that's something that she brought up as, this is common sense says that I can't be guilty for something that I haven't actually done. So just because I thought about it, just because something about her upper thigh, read into that what you will, only in her mind, whatever. So we have these things that seem like they're talking about something, but I think the big takeaway, here, let me get back down to it. I want to read this. Let's try and figure out. Okay. What if I'm going to read this whole part of the lyric, and it's going to sound weird coming from me, guys, and I'm sorry. What if he's written mine on my upper thigh, only in my mind, one slip and falling back into the hedge maze? Oh, what a way to die. My bed sheets are ablaze. I screamed his name, building up like waves, crashing over my grave. Without ever touching his skin, how can I be guilty of sin? What if I roll the stone away? They're going to crucify me anyway. What if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? If long-suffering propriety is what they want from me, they don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. I choose you and me religiously. All right, guys, I don't think we can say that there's no theological implications here. I don't know if she's trying to teach theology. I don't think she is, but there's implications of how she feels and what she thinks theology is telling her. Go at it. You guys are smarter than me. Brandon, Father Jonathan, tell me something. How do you guys wrestle with what she said here?
Well, I know this. Evangelical Facebook is already ablaze angry about this song. That it's
What is it really?
Yes,
I haven't heard anything yet.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
We saw it earlier. We saw it earlier. It's actually a lot of the album is being called blasphemous, partially because, as we mentioned earlier, lot of F-bombs. But this song in particular, I forgot what other ones. There's a couple times throughout this album where she uses religious language or religious imagery and language in the songs. But this is one of the biggest offenders, I guess. So yeah, I'll just put that one there of evangelical Christianity is already very, very mad about all this.
Yeah, that checks out.
I would like to contextualize it too, because they're like part of me just like looking like what's happened in relationship to her in the news, especially the like right wing news. That's maybe some of those groups are kind of keyed into. Like there was an anticipatory attention paid towards Taylor Swift, like given the nature of what's coming up in the political realm and like the whole, right wing conservative media stuff around her and Travis Kelce and like the Super Bowl and all of that. And so I think that they're like, I don't know that this isn't the case, like this is the case, but I do think that I think there was scrutiny was poised already coming in from certain groups, and so I'm not saying that's the only reason, or even if that's is a reason, but I think that there was a part of me that like anticipated some pushback from certain circles, just in general, and I think the language kind of gave reason for it, more than just like. If it was just like a lot of F-bombs and
Yeah,
normal breakup stuff like that. But I think the fact that the like attention was already directed towards her and what she was going to say or what she has been saying, and then to use language that, I mean, it's in many ways it's just drawing from ideas, religious ideas. But it's like not the first time that she's talked in a way of like love somehow being like sacramental in a certain way, and physicality and in relationships being somehow sacramental. So it's not the first time that she's talked about it.
Yeah.
Also building off of what Father Jonathan was saying there earlier of, right-wing media may have been poised for an attack from the get-go, no matter what the album was going to be. We were talking earlier about how, she's not the first secular artist to use religious imagery in a song, but sometimes these songs get a free pass because someone in the group is a professing Christian. U2 is probably one of the biggest examples of guys who throughout their entire career have been writing music that has religious imagery in it. They're a secular band, but Bono is Catholic, or I'm trying to think of Lifehouse would be another popular early 2000s group that the lead singer and I think a couple of the other guys were Christians. So they have like some very clearly Christian songs and no one really thought much about it. But it seems like because Taylor has never expressed any kind of like religious anything before. Fact check. No,
that's not true.
Okay.
I mean, growing up, I don't know what she would say she identifies with.
I'm glad I said fact check.
But in the documentary she made, Miss Americana, she says, because she's talking about like, this is what people in Tennessee who are Christian want. And she was like, I live in Tennessee. I'm Christian. That's not me. So that it's, a little bit older. So maybe she does or does not identify that way any longer. But I mean, I think she grew up in a Christian background. I do believe when I was in like middle school, high school, it was like, oh, Taylor Swift's a Christian, her and the Jonas Brothers,
right. Okay.
Where, they were okay because they're Christians, even though they're not Christian bands. You can still listen to them because they have purity rings or something.
Yeah. I think she's like more casually Christian, like most people who think of themselves as Christian. I'm hoping not to let this conversation get too off the rails here. One, masturbation's a tricky subject, whether or not we think that's okay or not, or if that's what she's talking about. That's a whole other thing. It doesn't seem like she's talking about watching porn specifically. So it's kind of like shrug. There's a lot of different theological diversity around whether or not masturbation's okay. I don't know, man. But specifically, I mean, what's weird is I feel a little bit like a hypocrite because I really have a disdain for the Florida Georgia Line song that's holy, that's talking about love being something that's holy to them.
Yeah, but they
holy
use
represents
as an
something
acronym to mean high on loving you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was an acronym, and it still bugs me. That song just bugs me. I'm just like, wait, that's not what holy means. Stop.
Song, but
and part of this does irritate me a little bit. I think the thing though is Taylor's very clearly, in my mind, not making theological statements, but saying what she feels. And I think it's important for those of us in ministry and not in ministry to realize this is how a lot of people feel. They feel like a lot of Christian culture, or people who say that they're Christians, are saying, all you're doing is sins. This is a sin. This is a sin. This is a sin, blah, 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 and attacking them. And they're like, what? I didn't do anything. How can I be guilty? I didn't do anything.
Would you liken, this is for everybody, not just Josh, would you liken this song to Take Me to Church by Hosier?
That's a good song. That's different.
I mean that song popped into my head.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the one where she's like I think tonally it's the same. It might even be the same chord progression, but it's where she's like describing the person as her drug. I forget the name of that song.
Oh, that's on Reputation.
I remember that one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
Oh, Don't Blame Me.
Blakey.
Yeah, Don't Blame Me. But like I think the chord progression like kind of lines up. I've heard like mashups with that. So like I think I automatically kind of went into those kind of like those two songs together.
Yeah.
And I think contextually, like just I don't like although there's language like roll away the stone, like crucify me and stuff like that. I honestly like I'm thinking about the criticism that she would actually be getting, like if she's writing this, and I don't think that she's looking. Like I don't think that it's religious. Like it's criticism that she would get for having feelings or having thoughts about another person or engaging in some type of relationship with another person, coming from like a religious group. I think it's just like so much of her experience has been being under the microscope because she is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, artists of like the last 10 years. And so she's constantly being criticized externally, and she's using the language of sin, but I don't know that it's like sin like a Christian would understand the idea of sin as much as it's as it's much of like a social faux pas or something like that she's saying, and like it's just happening in my mind, but I'm not like going out there and doing it. But like, would it really be so bad if I just like did this, like just kind of engaged in this relationship, even like despite what everyone says about it? You can take it for what it is about who she's talking about of this particular stuff, maybe. And so so I like that's it. So that's the only thing like I would say is like it's challenging because this is language that like people are like familiar enough, and I'm trying to like go back to like I didn't grow up in the church or anything like that. I kind of came to it like a little later, and I wasn't like I saw the Passion of the Christ. That was like the first time I really heard a story of the crucifixion. But like I knew like this is the type of language I would understand being unchurched and unfamiliar, and they're just catchy, religious-y sounding words when she's trying to like use this language of original sin and crucifixion and religiosity, but without actually trying to like express something that is in any way those things. At least that's how I'm reading into the lyrics.
Yeah, and for me, it helps to. This is Man, this is just so on brand for me. I am on brand today, guys. The Four Loves, C.S. Lewis, favorite book, etc.
He's going to get into that club one of these days.
Oh no, so it is my favorite book, and part of why is because like it just explains the human experience so fully and so well, and contextualizes it in the gospel in a way that helps me make sense of life. And it actually helps me make sense of this song a little bit. So in the book, he breaks down how all of our loves are more or less a reflection of the real ultimate love, which is God's love. So to think of our romantic loves and be like, man, it feels sacred, it feels holy. It should a little bit, right? Like it should, because it is a reflection of something that truly is holy. So it makes sense in a way when she says, what if this is the thing that is holy? I understand that feeling. I think it's only a reflection of what's truly holy, but I understand where that feeling is coming from. And I think she's describing a feeling and not saying it is holy. She's saying, what if this is what's holy? Because that's what she's feeling. And to me, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm reminded, as you said that. So there is I want to say 10th, 11th century saint. His name is Saint Simeon, the New Theologian, and he wrote a series of poems called Hymns on Divine Eros. And oftentimes we when we think of divine love, we're like kind of thinking of agapic love, like self-sacrificial love. But he kind of like, and this kind of draws back into Old Testament, like, the Song of Songs kind of love. Like there is a way in which erotic love, like God loves us in a way that's erotically desiring us, and we are meant to have that same type of erotic love, this love that is desire and eros, towards God. And even like in some of the hymns, like there's like, I wouldn't say it's explicit, but like he likens the relationship of a human being to God to the coupling relationship within the dynamic of a husband and wife. And I mean, this is like Christian from 1,000 years ago, like realizing that there is something in the human experience of this particular type of love, that can speak to the dynamic of our love for God and God's love for humanity.
All right. Are you guys ready to go through the album? I know we're already an hour plus into this, and I knew this was going to be long because we can't not let this be long because it's Taylor Swift of all things. What else does Geeks talk about other than Taylor Swift?
Just got to do it for like 13 hours,
Yeah, it's fine. All right. If you guys are ready, I want to jump in. Like I mentioned, what we're going to do, we're only going to talk about 8 of the songs. There are 31 songs. So of course this was going to be a long episode. 122 minutes of content, but we are only going to talk about 8 songs. I'm going to start at the first song. I'm going to list them off. You guys say stop when you're at one you want to talk about. The only other rules here's we go, because my favorite songs are not going to be the 2 that I want to talk about. So you get thumbs up, thumbs down for those on YouTube. Or if you need to say, you can't do a whole sentence. You can do a half a sentence comment if you want of, oh, that's a good one. Or, wish we could talk more about that. Something like that. That's fine, but not a full sentence. All right. Unless it's your pick.
Okay.
Are we all good? Clear on the rules that aren't very rule-like and are more like guidelines?
He's still on the pirate thing.
I sure am. Here we go. Number 1, Fortnite. Number 2, the Tortured Poets Department. 3, My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys.
Perfect. That's my favorite.
4, Down Bad. 5, So Long London.
Okay, I want to talk about this one.
All right, here we go. That took long enough.
Ooh,
I'm surprised. We got to 5.
So I liked this song, but the reason why I want to talk about it is because I feel like this is a really good example of, I feel like everyone was kind of obsessing over like, who's the song about? Is this song about Joe? Oh my gosh, so many of these songs are about Maddie Healy and all of this stuff, even though she's like telling us like, oh my gosh, please stop talking about my dating life. Like, and so like, this is just one of those songs that I was like, I guess on the surface, everyone would just assume like, oh yeah, this song's just about Joe. But I really liked this song because I feel like it really encapsulates that going through a breakup, especially with like a longtime partner. You're not just losing that person. She lost her life. Like she thought she was, going to be with this person and they were going to live in London, and she loved being there and she loved, all of this stuff about her life. And now she doesn't get it. Like she can't have that because the relationship's over and she has to say goodbye to all of that. And to me, like, I don't know, I just really thought that was a very powerful message of like, so often I feel like breakup songs just talk about like, oh, I miss you, and like the things about the person. They don't really go into like just how devastating ending a long-term relationship can be and why it's so hard to end a relationship like that, because there's a lot at risk and there's a lot to lose.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have anything in response to that? Because that's I feel like she said that really well. There's a Judah and the Lion song that's like I don't remember the name of it, but it's like the worst part of the breakup is trying to take these pictures off the walls. That's that's rough.
I do love me some Judah and the Lion. I forgot about them.
They are a great group.
Oh yeah.
I think just like resonating with the idea of like, it's not just like a life, like you can lose an entire location along with it. Like I still have a hard time driving by the house where I lived with my ex, like it was hard.
Yeah. I like think about like, she's going to go play a bunch of shows in London, and like, she's going to do it cause she has lots of fans there, but like there, it's like forever. Anytime she goes back there for a tour or whatever, like there's going to be a certain filter on it. Even if she's healed and everything, that's going to hold some emotions and stuff there. So.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, no, that's rough. All right. Are we wanting to move on to other songs? Can we move on to other songs? This album's so rough, man. All right. I'm going to try to move on and let's see where we stop next. But Daddy, I Love Him.
I like that one.
All right, here we go. Oh,
yeah.
Is that a stop or is that a one?
Yeah, it's a stop. I didn't let us get very far. This one is the one like I've listened to the most so far, and I think part of it is like that country quality that was nostalgic for her early stuff. But then also, it is a story song, like it tells a narrative. Not that other ones don't. But like this like follows the pattern of the story, much like a lot of her earlier songs did. And then part of it is like, yes, there's also these kind of like critiques of kind of like some of the self-righteousness that you see in some kind of like traditional conservative communities, and like this idea of like a wild young love that like. I'd say it's not something like I like personally relate to, but like I can understand how a person who's young and has like all these feelings like flowing through their head and hormones and all of those things, like how this scenario could play out, just not totally understanding, and then like have it like switch towards the end, like it's like a natural relationship and like things can work out. And so there was something about it that like, I feel like this is the type of like pastoral, I could see myself having a pastoral conversation with someone who's like working through this, and like how one like might expect, I'm a priest in a pretty conservative Orthodox Christian tradition, that I might like be the like a voice like that is the criticizing of like kind of the lifestyle choices of someone, but every ounce of my body and like my being, if I were to be confronted with like an experience like this, would be inclined to just try to understand where that person is coming from, and like I felt a sorrow for this character, both because of what she was feeling, and then also with like what she was experiencing from like her family and like the church people and all of that, but then also like a sadness that like this is the emotional maturity level of like that this person is stuck at and not able to see, like it's not oppressive. There's a reason why we have to be mindful of like how we give ourselves to another person, because it may be beautiful and exciting now, but you never know, like you don't know what will happen and what will be taken from you, like not just like the parts of you that might be taken when something that is like exciting and crazy and driving through fences in a relationship. But like when you come off of that and you recognize how like life is harder than just people not thinking that it's okay for you to be with someone. Like there are deeper hardships that come in the dynamic of a relationship, and having been in relationships and having had them end, like I recognize the toll it takes, the pieces of you lose, and even when you were like so certain and people around you were saying you wasn't right, and then to like have that realization that maybe there was a truth to it that you were unable to see because you were so wrapped up in the infatuation of this experience. So it's just I just felt like a very powerful, very real, very believable story, that I could see myself like caring for a person at any stage of what this story like was or could play out to be.
Yeah. I hey, when we're talking about feelings and Taylor Swift songs, I feel like you got to get a little personal. So I'm just gonna let loose a little bit on this episode. I'm made to think of, I had an ex, and I did have a lot of people who told me like, hey, this isn't right. This isn't whatever. This isn't it, Josh. And again, to go back to C.S. Lewis, there's that whole thing of the four loves of like, if you let it, each love will become a god. And when it becomes a god, it becomes a demon. That's something that he says over and over and over. Friendship, when you become so obsessed with friendship, it ends up being about the friendship itself to the point that you're just excluding others and you're doing no good in the world. So when it becomes a god, it becomes a demon, right? And he goes through and he does this with all this. And the thing with romantic love is you can become so obsessed with one another that you lose everything else. So when it becomes a god, it becomes a demon. And what's crazy is I look back on it, and even to this day, I can't point and go, yeah, she was bad for me. Some stuff that literally no one could have foreseen happened that caused it to become something that we couldn't stay in, that I tried to make happen anyway, just because everybody else was telling me that it was wrong for me. And I was like, well, the reasons you think are wrong are false. And since you're wrong, I'm going to stay in this relationship just to prove you wrong. And that became really, really toxic for me, and led to a lot of terrible outcomes just because, well, you said I can't, and I know your reason why I can't is wrong. So let me be right, and let me show you that I'm right. And yeah, that's unhealthy and bad. And that's not what this song's about, but it brings up that feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I relate to what she's saying of just like I had an ex that like all of my friends and like that friends and family didn't really like, not that he was like bad, but it was just like, but I just wanted them to all shut up because I was like, but I'm happy. Why can't you just be happy for me? Like, and I feel like that's kind of a little bit what she's getting at of like, just stop talking about my dating life and let me do it on my own.
Yeah. We might talk about it later, but there's another song where she's like, my good name is something for me to ruin. Like, you guys can butt out.
It's the same song. That's this song.
Good. That's a good one. Anyway, sorry, I don't know all the songs yet, guys. I've only listened to it like 3 or 4 times. Anyway, all right. Is everybody good to keep going down the list? All right, here we go. Fresh out the slammer, Florida. Boo. Where's my thumbs down? Guilty as sin. We already talked about that one. Who's afraid of little old me? I can fix him. No, really, I can. LOML.
It's a sad song.
I can do it with a broken heart.
Me.
Oh, I was gonna.
Thank God. This is one of my favorites, but I don't have a ton to say about it. So I'm glad you do.
Yeah. So like I said, I've only listened to the album the one time so far. So I don't have a lot to say. I don't have a lot to say about many of the songs. But when it comes to this one, I think this will be the one that ends up being my favorite from the album. Because as I mentioned earlier, the ones that are a little bit more about like identity seem to hit with me better. And there's a lot of that in this song. There's some of that in this song, of just like, it's very relatable of, you got your heart ripped out and you have to still go to work. Now for her, going to work is being on stage in front of thousands of screaming fans and having to pretend like you're happy while you're up there. And that's very different than me having a bad day at home, Cooper being very fussy, and then I have to go to work where I teach children. So, it's not a good one-to-one. It's apples and oranges, but it's still it's again, kind of like trying to relate this to just personal experiences of like, everyone has had that time where you're depressed, you're anxious, you're whatever, and yet you're still expected to go do a thing. I did my grandfather's funeral back in November. My family, my dad came to me and wanted me to put the service together, to preach, to do the graveside. And because I love my family, I did it, but it was a very awkward grieving experience. And, again, just kind of that, like, people are, as we just got done talking, people like watching everything you do in your dating relationship, and then your heart gets broken and you have to go on stage and sing about how, tonight it's a good night to, I'm feeling 22 and all this kind of stuff, even though like your heart's ripped out. I know when you're talking about Taylor Swift, you shouldn't bring up Katy Perry, but when Katy Perry had like a concert movie come out years ago, and part of the movie was showing when Russell Brand sent her the text message that they broke up. Like, that's how he broke up with Katy Perry. It was like through text moments before she's about ready to go on stage and do this big like show. And you just see her like backstage just sobbing, and it's 3, 2, 1. And she goes, just like puts on this big cheesy grin and just goes into the show. Plus, I just really like the line. It's very catchy and trendy on social media right now. I'm so depressed, I pretend it's my birthday every day, or something like that.
Great line.
That's a very the pop punk guy. Like I find that to be a very pop punk line. Like I could hear Paramore sing an entire song revolving around that line. So
I love the line of, I'm miserable and nobody even knows.
Yeah.
Like where she sounds extra
line.
Barbie for that. I'm like, that's perfect.
My favorite is, I cry a lot, but I am so productive. And I was like,
yeah.
And every millennial said amen.
I have a pretty public role, and having gone through the end of a relationship in the midst of like a very public ministry, it was quite challenging, and I had oftentimes had to like pretend everything was okay when I was like, I felt like I was dying on the inside, and so like this really kind of very much resonated with experiences that I had. I mean, it's like no one's expecting me to make hit marks and stilettos, but I certainly there were certainly aspects of it, and then this was just like I don't want to like go on too long because I know we're pressed for we have a short amount of time. But I recently had, like been getting into like old anime shows and stuff like that, and for whatever reason, like the slice of life romance ones are just kind of like popping up in my my proposed things. And there was one, I think it's based on a webtoon called The Girl Downstairs, and then there's an anime, and then there's like a 1 season live action K-drama, Korean drama, a version of it too. And it's like this like kind of broken former pop star who like goes through this like existential crisis, ends up like living, like he gets dropped out by her manager in this like rundown like house like on campus of a university in Seoul, and she ends up like meeting her upstairs neighbor, and like they slowly fall in love, and then she's like sued for copyright or sued for like breach of contract, and she has to like go back into the pop star life, and in order to do that she has to like break up with the guy that she's seeing in the regular world. And it's just like the different versions, like the webtoon versus the anime versus the TV show. Like she's doing it like she's making all her marks, she's doing all her things, she's acting like she's fine. She even like wrote her entire album based on their love story, and he never listened to it. And so like and so it's just like really tragic. And then she like at the end, like they get back together for a day, and like she tells him that she has a boyfriend even though she doesn't. So like this, anyways, long story short, like I just saw that played out recently, and it just kind of like, it's like I've seen that in multiple media, like what that can be like is you're like your whole life is on display, and you have to pretend like you're ready to wow 100,000, 200,000 people in a stadium when you're dying on the inside.
Oh, that's a positive note.
I once broke up with a guy right before my shift at Chick-fil-A, so I think I can understand what Taylor's going through right now.
Yeah, that's exactly the same for sure. No, no, but like I get it. Like sometimes it feels the same, and that's one thing when we're talking about feelings. Like, I'm going to make myself to be the wuss in this situation. For me, like stubbing a toe might make me feel like my life's falling apart, and I might feel the same emotional weight that Brandon feels after literally everyone he's ever met has been kidnapped by aliens and he's left on the planet alone. You know, like our emotions aren't necessarily 1-to-1. Like Brandon might just be that much tougher than me. Tough's not really the word. Tough's not the right word. I'm not trying to belittle anyone else's feelings. It's just one of those things when we're talking about feelings, like if you relate and your thing seems smaller than Taylor's thing, it's fine. I promise Taylor's not upset about it. God's not upset about it. We're not upset about it. It's cool. Yeah.
Just as a last note on that, like I always tell people, like I never tell people I know how they feel. I said, I don't know what it's like to go through what you're going through, but the feelings that you're describing and the thoughts that you've told me you're thinking, I have both felt and thought those feelings and thought those thoughts before. And that's like the idea of empathy. Like, I don't know what you're going through, but I know what it can feel like to feel those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one of my favorite professors, who's also a mentor of mine, he broke that down for me, because I always thought it was a really comforting thing to say. Is like, oh, I know what you're feeling. He's like, don't ever say that. Because here's the thing. Even if you went through literally the same thing, you didn't go through it as them. So you don't know what it feels like for them. I was like, oh, man. And with that, we're moving on. Number 14, the smallest man who ever lived. I hope that's a double entendre. Number 15, The Alchemy. Number 16, Clara Bow. Moving on to track the album 2, disc 2. Number 17, The Black Dog. That's a good one, by the way. Number 18, I'm going to get you back.
Wow.
There's no spaces. I felt like that's just the appropriate way to say it.
Correct.
Number 19, The Albatross, also fantastic.
Really?
Number 20, Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. I'm going to stop us here. I'm going to talk about this one.
Oh, okay.
I loved this song. It connected with me on so many levels, a lot of which are just not what Taylor meant at all. From my understanding in the song, it feels like she's talking about someone who left her, and he's with somebody. I don't even remember the name who they're with. Chloe, Sam, Sophia, somebody, right? And I love the chorus. It's just so emotional and raw, and just like I just feel it. If you want to break my cold, cold heart, just say I loved you the way you were. If you want to tear my world apart, just say you've always wondered. So why this song connects with me, and this is going to get a little weird maybe. I'm brain damaged. Fun fact. After my accident, I have about 2 years right before the accident that are really, really fuzzy for me. I don't remember all the details. And during that time, I had a very serious relationship that I just barely remember. And what I do remember, it almost feels like someone else's story. It's like, you're telling me this thing happened, and I'm like, cool. Some guy named Josh Noel dated some girl named blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, it feels like you're just telling me a story, even though like I do have memories that happened, but it doesn't feel like it happened to me. So this whole thing of like Chloe or Sam or whoever, it's like, yes, this resonates with me because it's like, I don't know this person. Like I know the name. I know what happened. I don't know this person. And for me, for a long time, probably up until I met my wife, because once I met my wife, I realized it doesn't matter because I love you and I love the life that I have. But up until that moment, I struggled with, what if this person who I don't really remember said, I always loved you? Or I've always wondered, what if things were different? Because I'm like, I don't even know what happened. What do you mean if things were different? Like, so for me, that's always been a subject of like, I don't know because I truly don't remember. So my feelings are so complicated around that relationship because I don't remember the relationship. And even at one point I reached out and was like, I think I need to meet up. I'm brain damaged. This happened to me. I need to know what happened. And I basically got rejected on the invitation to figure out what happened. So that's for me, a very sensitive point. And this song really put feelings to that, even though I don't feel exactly the same now because I'm married. I'm like, it doesn't matter what happened. It still puts words to feelings that I didn't quite have words for. And I found that really helpful for me. So I really like this song for that reason, even though, again, definitely not what Taylor intended. She wasn't like, someone out there has like bad memories and has brain damaged and needs this song. Like that's not what she was doing here, but it really did help me put words to those feelings. And I don't know, still sensitive. This album's really new for me. So it's just one of those like, man, I really teared up, and it's weird tearing up about a relationship that you don't actually remember. So it's like, I don't know. Felt something at one point, I guess. So that's where I'm at.
I know you were being respectful towards the person you were dating, but when you said blah, 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 all I could think of was that episode of How I Met Your Mother where they can't remember the girl's name. So they kept calling her blah, blah. And even like the character,
God, that was great.
Her name was blah, blah.
Hi, I'm blah, blah. That was a great episode though. Oh man. Also, How I Met Your Mother really helps me work through emotions just in general. That's a different episode for a different time.
Josh and I have already done it twice, so yeah, we'll
going to do it again.
Another one sometime.
I'd be
create our own
that.
Challenge accepted. Oh man! All right. Anybody have anything else to say about Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus?
I don't get this song. Like I am constantly like looking up explanations as to what this song means, and for some reason in my brain, I cannot figure it out. Like it does not make sense to me. I'm just like,
that's fair.
Like it sounds very pretty. Like if I'm not like trying to figure out what the words mean and I just listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I enjoy this song. But then I'm like, but what does this mean?
That's actually just funny. Yeah, I like. We had very different responses.
I'm not a very tortured poet, I guess. I don't know.
That's funny. All right. if we're good to move on, number 21, How Did It End? Number 22, So High School.
No, sorry. This is like one of my favorite songs on the album.
I thought this one was very Taylor Swifty.
I could take it or leave it, you know.
The song, for some reason, it just put me into like a state of nostalgia of just like,
I get that.
like being in love in high school, because it's totally fake for the most part. It's not all the time, but you know, but like just that, like you don't have anything else to worry about, so you just get to be in love and like just be with that person, and like I don't know, and like whether this song is about Travis Kelce or not, I know that's the rumor, but like I don't know, like it's just such a nice feeling, and I like the sound of it. To me, it kind of reminds me of like almost like a Sixpence None the Richer sound. Like that's the vibes I get, and I just really like it. I also just, first of all, I love that she name drops Aristotle in this song. I think that's fantastic. And I just I think the line, touch me while your boys play Grand Theft Auto, I think that that's fantastic too. So I don't know.
That is funny.
I just like the song a lot.
The reason I did my so hand motion, I try not to dislike song. See, so I have the opposite problem. So you can love something because you know the context and you're like, blah. And like, sometimes I get too wrapped up in the context of the songs. I don't like Travis Kelce. It's not that I don't like him and Taylor together. I think he's an annoying individual. So I'm just like, any song that I think might be about him, it's hard not to be biased. Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
This is a big sticking point for a lot of people.
I'm sorry. Are you going to sit here and tell me that you would act differently if you had just won the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. 100%. No. I would have at least said, we're going to Disney World, damn it.
But he doesn't go to Disney World. That's
his fault.
So why would he say that?
That he could do better. He could go to Disney World.
I'm sorry.
Also, he just comes off like that high school football player, jock, frat boy kind of person. And I'm like, this
is literally everything that Claire's bestie said about why she doesn't like Travis Kelce. So we have come to
it's more of a vibe than anything.
Why
honestly.
people don't like Travis Kelce is because he likes to have fun.
It's literally just the vibe. That's all. Like, I had nothing against him as a person. I don't know him.
I'm sorry. I mean, she could continue to date British twinks, but you know.
That would be better.
No, it wouldn't, clearly.
I like British twinks. Give me some Benedict cucumber patch. Come on.
Benadryl cabbage patch.
There we go. Anyway, are we good to move on from this one? Or
1975 guy was a bad idea, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was bad. But she did tell us that it's not up to us to ruin her reputation. It's her right to do.
It's her right to do that. Yeah, and to take her reputation back.
Yeah.
Hashtag Taylor's version.
Okay. Are we going to move on from?
Yes.
No. I'm mad.
Okay. Number 23. I hate it here. Number 24. Thank you, Amy. I'm going to stop at this one. Even to the extent of how she named the song was just freaking genius. like here's the thing. Like, I try not to be the kind of person who pits up, pity or anger or anything towards others. Like, I try to be forgiving and caring and whatever. But sometimes you just need a song that's like, you know what? F that person. F you. Look, I'm like, I loved this. She capitalized the K-I-M. And even at one point in the song is like, your kids are going to come home singing this because they're not going to know who it's about. And I'm just like, I love Taylor for this. Like, the amount of pity and just anger. And I'm just like, this is what I need. Like whenever someone just makes me mad, I can see myself listening to this being like, Taylor got him. It just makes me feel good,
I have a theory. I don't normally like to get into like the Taylor Swift theories and stuff. But I have a theory that the reason why she has this song, because it's like seems like different. Like, this is all about like the time period after she broke up with Joe and getting in with Maddie and being sad and upset and depressed and mentally unstable. And like all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, and that thing that happened with Kim Kardashian however many years ago, I'm still mad. But actually, I think what it is that she's currently working on Reputation, her version. And so it's in her
that makes
brain.
sense.
And she hasn't been able to get to this album because, like, first of all, it's the first album with all the songs about Joe. You know, it's about the beginning of their love. And so, and then a lot of it is also has to do with this feud with Kim and Kanye. And so she had to heal from those things before she could release Reputation, Taylor's version. And at the end of this song, she says she realizes that if it weren't for what they did, she would not have any of this.
Yeah.
And so I mean, made peace with it. So I think Rep Taylor's version's coming soon. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, maybe in a fortnight. So that'd be great. Man, even like how this song builds. This is gonna sound weird, but it reminds me of Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. Because it's like at first
you are in full form tonight.
At first it's like maybe she said it was my fault, man. You know, it's not my fault. And then it's maybe it's my fault. And then it's probably my fault. And then by the end of the song, it's like, yeah, it was me. I did it. It's my fault. Like that's how Margaritaville builds. And she builds this with like, F you, I'm mad. And it's like, well, maybe if you didn't do it, I wouldn't be here. And I was like, actually, if you didn't do it, I probably wouldn't be here. And by the end, she's like, thanks, jerk. And you're like, yeah, sure. Sorry, I just love it. And even still, like there are points like I look back on like people who did me wrong or hard times I've been through, not even necessarily people, even hard times that I just like was mad at the situation that I now am able to look back and be like, yeah, I wouldn't be here without that. Thank you, hard times. Or F you, hard times. So, yeah, it depends on the day. Oh, man. All right. Anybody else have anything to say about Thank You, Amy? Kim's version? All right.
Should we expect a rebuttal from Kanye?
They're divorced.
Let's not even.
Still, Kanye is Kanye, so or whatever
That's
his
true.
name is currently.
Who knows? All right. Number 25. I look in people's windows. Easily her creepiest song. If Weird Al does not do a cover of this, I'm disappointed.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Number 26.
Has he ever done a parody of a Taylor Swift song?
No idea.
He's supposed to get permission. So I wonder if she's never.
He likes to give permission. He doesn't have to. He just chooses to do that way. Okay. Number 26, The Prophecy. Number 27, possibly my favorite, Cassandra. 28, my other favorite, Peter. Number 29, The Bolter.
No, that's my favorite.
Number 30, Robin. Number 31, The Manuscript. All right. So I think all three of you still have one more song you have to pick.
I did too.
You did too?
In the high school. Yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay. That's true.
Faithful,
That's true.
and I did.
Just Brandon and Jonathan still have another song they have to pick.
Jonathan, which one do you want?
I don't
Do
I don't-
Fortnite.
I feel like none of them like struck like. I didn't get enough time with any of them. Like as you were going through, like I was trying to think of like if there were any ones that struck me, and I didn't have enough time to like sit with any more than the one that I mentioned or the ones we've already discussed. So
Then I'll break the rules. I'll pick the third, and it'll be.
I was gonna go. I have a second.
Oh, will you pick Fortnite?
I'll talk a little bit about Fortnite.
Okay, fine.
I'll just circle back to the beginning and talk a little bit about Fortnite. First off, nice to see you, Post Malone. Second,
Yes.
the song is good. The song is good. I'm assuming this will be the radio hit one. I actually wanted to talk more about the music video because I'm one of those people who like watching music videos. And
Post Malone is so handsome without tattoos. It blew my mind. I was like, wow, I thought you were ugly, sir.
that was rough. Aw,
Sorry.
she's ugly. Yeah, I would be really interested to see if first off, if she does something I don't think she's done before of starting to make interconnected music videos, and if all of the videos related to this album will like tell a long form story. I think that would be kind of cool. Love the aesthetic. Josh, this one's for you. I was getting major Moon Knight vibes from this
Yes.
video.
Hey, wait, it's over here. Right there. That's Jonathan Hickman's signature on a Moon Knight comic right there, sir.
Good to see you, Mooney.
Yeah.
It does make me so. Apparently, we found this out that this song is a multiple layered meaning to it, and one of them is that this is a reference to a 1800s poet. I can't remember a poet, 20th century poet who had a Sylvia Plath, Sylvia Plath, who had a similar kind of story to Taylor Swift. They're actually both like considered to be very overrated in their genre, but also very popular. And she had a very tragic end. And part of her life story is that she spent time in a mental institute, like she does in this, Taylor Swift does in this video. And it just makes me really appreciate, as somebody with mental health, you know, you read about how they used to treat mental health issues. You know, as somebody with like depression and anxiety, you read about, or you see like movies or read stories about how they used to treat it. And yeah, there's a lot of bad stigma still out there. And yes, the church still is way behind in how they could be taking care of people in the mental health community. But my word, shock therapy, lobotomies, like I would have had it both done to me by this point if I was alive in the like early, 1900s and the late 1800s. I would have, they would have called a priest, they would have called Father Jonathan to try and perform an exorcism. And if that wouldn't work, they would have shocked me. And if that would have worked, they would have lobotomized me. And it just really breaks my heart all jokes aside, like it really does break my heart of how we used to treat people who were hurting. And that's part of the music video, is like they do like this electroshock therapy on Taylor Swift, and it really does just like break my heart, like how we used to treat people. Like I said, there's still pockets here and there of stigmas and issues, but man, it used to be bad. It used to be so bad. And I know that doesn't really have so much to do with the song, more so like just like reflections from the video, but also a form of art. So,
yeah, no, I agree with all that. I think for me, the thing that if I was to talk about Fortnite, and this does kind of tie into some of that too, is how much pain can be inflicted in a small period of time, and how we don't have the right to say, oh, well, that was just, just a phase, or that just was, however, and this goes back to the original thing we were talking about like earlier on, of how like what happens to me, even if you go through the same thing, might not feel the same for you. And that's why I feel like it's so important that she brings up, maybe this relationship didn't last so long for her, whatever she's talking about, but man, it hurt just the same. And I'm reminded of like David Tennant, his time as the Doctor. He wasn't the Doctor for very long. He wasn't the 10th Doctor very long. Burned bright, burned hot, and man, it made a huge impact on the Doctor's life. And yeah, there's like points in my life that are like, yeah, man, I was in Charleston for like 2 years of my life. I'm 30 years old. Like that's not a ton of my life, but man, a lot of my life was shaped and formed around that time. So it's like, even though something to you might seem like it was just a fortnight, it wasn't very long, it shouldn't be that big a deal. Maybe it is to them.
True.
Yeah. If I was to steal a third song from somebody, sorry, Father Jonathan, if I'm stealing his other song, I'd choose Peter, just because I like any song that references Peter Pan makes me happy. It's pretty simple. just I love the Peter Pan story, especially like the original story, and like how the way it ends of like not Disney version, how much more tragic it is that all the Lost Boys go with her and everybody does grow up except for Peter, and he keeps going back. And he actually forgets who all of them are. And it's one of those like, yeah, when you're a child, it's like you don't even remember this thing. But if you grow up how you're supposed to be, the scars stick with you, And I like that too. I like that. But also, I just like Peter Pan. It's mostly that.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
We're not going to talk about the Jehovah Witness suit.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
his face wore. Or...
That's in Smallest Pain I've Lived.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, guys, we've been on this for a very long time and haven't rated the album 0 to 10. Everybody, just if you have any like quick thoughts with it, you can. It's fine. But just so we get it out of the way, I don't know, guys. For me, this felt like a very average Taylor Swift album. I liked how she picked a little bit of all of her eras. To me, it doesn't feel like there's a Tortured Poets Department era. It feels like some of these songs felt like they could have been in 1989. Some of them felt like they could have been in folklore. Like, it feels like she just kind of picked and chose from other eras. So she didn't break any new ground as far as I'm concerned. So that's the thing that I was like, man, I wish we had a new vibe in this, like a whole new feeling for Taylor. I feel like we didn't get that. So I'm kind of disappointed, but a lot of the songs I really do like. So I'll give it like a 6 out of 10, maybe 7, 6 or 7. That's how I'm feeling. It was okay. A lot of the songs were great. A lot of them were just felt like another Taylor Swift song that I could have mistaken for a song on a different album, and maybe an extra. Brandon, you go.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think just like a nice solid 6. I know on a 10-point scale that's not great, but it was a fine album. Like you said, kind of it sounded like Taylor Swift music. I don't know how else to put it. I actually found, because a lot of these were so slow and melodious, I felt like a lot of times you could end a line by saying champagne problems. Like it really fit into a lot of the song. So yeah, like I get that idea of this could have been parts of several different eras. So
yeah. All right. Claire, we'll let you go next.
I think it's probably about a 6 or a 7 for me. I think if we didn't have the second half of the album and only the first half, I might put it a little bit higher just because I personally liked the first half better. But she didn't. But I think the purpose of this album was for her to just let it all out, to close the book on this chapter, and to just be done. And now she can move on, and she can, she's, process through it. So I think her next album will be maybe a bit more like back to her, like wanting to experiment and stuff. I just don't think that was the purpose of the album. I think she just needed to write and process and focus more on like the feelings rather than the music. So she stuck with what she knew and what was safe. Yeah. And then,
yeah, no, totally checks out. I mean, other than the first half thing, but that's fine.
You're wrong.
I know. It's okay though. I'm used to being wrong. Father Jonathan, take us home. 0 to 10. How do you feel about this one?
Oh, I don't have a feeling yet.
Fair. That's fair.
I got so this is like the close of our Lenten season. Because our Easter is a week from Sunday, so like we're right in that period of time where like most of the time I was listening to this, I was driving between like visiting our homebound parishioners before Easter, doing like I think I've done like over a dozen confessions in the last like 3 or 4 days. So it's just like I've been listening to it, but I've been listening to it just kind of like emotionally, spiritually drained, because it's a lot to bear the pains and stuff of so many people while I was bearing my own pain. But so I don't have a ranking. I think that in many ways, it's like a lot of it is what I think I needed to hear right now, and what that means in terms of where I rate it. I just don't have a number for it, but I think I will be listening to it for the next little bit, and I think it's on the positive end of the spectrum, and it's certainly above the middle, but I don't know exactly where it's going to land till I've actually had time to listen to 31 songs enough to even be able to recognize what song by name was about what. So
that's also fair. Yeah. We all agree it's above middle.
Yeah. We're all terrible content creators too. We're supposed to have hard, hot takes, even though it's 31 songs.
If that's what you wanted, I can give you some hot takes.
Give me a hot take real quick.
You have one offhand?
Offhand?
Cassandra's one of her best songs ever.
No.
I had this like first we feast vibe. This camera, this camera, this camera. Roll out the red carpet.
I think, like we talked about earlier, like Me is not a bad song. People who don't like it just don't like having fun.
That's true. That is an accurate statement. I agree. But I have bad opinions, so I don't know.
You do have some bad opinions,
Yeah,
but that's okay. Everybody has bad opinions.
All right, guys. Before we wrap this up, I want to see, do you guys have any other thoughts, either around the album or just the idea of like how much this music is focused around relationships and breakups? Is it like idolizing relationships, or do you think it's like healthy that we have this kind of thing as an outlet? Or do we not have any thoughts about this at all? Just want to move on.
I'll say this. She's made a career, I'll air quote that, of writing about, breakups and being upset that Maggie Gyllenhaal still has her scarf or something. But
sorry. That's funny though.
But this one's different. If there's anything Tortured Poets Department does well, that is different from all the other breakups, all the other this, is that it is very raw. It is very but not in a, not in a bitter kind of sense, not in a FU kind of sense, not in the immature. That's the word I'm looking for. Not in like this immature sense. Like it is a very mature exploration of very difficult feelings and acknowledging that like relationships, when there's a breakup, like it might not be just like this black and white, you hurt me. Like it can cause, like we talked about with the So Long London, like loss of an entire life, loss of an entire memory, loss of an entire, continent or whatever, the UK, like whatever, like, it's complicated. And I feel like this album does a very good job of communicating that. Like we said, is it her best album of all time? I think all four of us would be pretty confident to say not particularly, at least not our favorites of all of her albums. But I think as an album that explores very complicated emotions in relation to breakups, this is a very mature album in that sense.
Yeah. And I think that's necessary, even if it's not the most fun or most beautiful. Sometimes we just need to hear someone else go through the complicated stuff because we're tired of it.
I do have to say, like, so I don't know how, Josh, you said you're 30, but like I don't know how old everyone is. So I'm about to turn 37. So I'm like kind of getting to I'm about to enter my late 30s, and I've been thinking a lot, like just the idea that like this is a woman in her like early to mid 30s reflecting on life and breakups and all of those things, versus the 15-year-old girl that started this career, or like the girl in her early 20s or mid 20s. We're constantly re-reflecting on the experiences and the themes and the wisdom that has come through a life in the world. And I think that like the reality, like I've grown along with her because we're just a few years apart in age. I've just been talking recently. I don't know if this like has to say about like, oh, do we need breakup songs or anything like that? I mean, like the reality is like that's one very big aspect of like what most people's lives are like. It's in a very yes, we have our careers. Yes, we have other struggles. Yes, awful things are going on in the world right now. But like it is a common human experience from age to age, is how we feel, the relationships we have, longing and love and all of those things. But one of the things I was saying is, and you kind of alluded to it, I forget who said it, but like the idea of like very young ways of thinking are very black and white. And I'm reminded of like, there's this Catholic thinker, Richard Rohr, and he talks about like, it was like, I think in Falling Upwards, like something about the two halves of life. And he was saying there's first half of life thinking is very black and white, yes, no, this or that. And the second half of life thinking is marked by an ability, capacity to be with ambiguity, and to feel all the stuff that you feel in the midst of that ambiguity, but not exist in a way where it has to be this or that, black or white. But be aware and live into the reality that life is more textured and complicated and messy and uncertain than can be experienced when you're 15, 20, 25, 30, and even when you're like in your late 30s and you haven't grown emotionally mature enough to be in that place where you can be okay with ambiguity.
Yeah, just to kind of like put it into perspective, we started with picture to burn, and now we're at So Long London. Like, if that doesn't show some form of like maturity of growth in processing emotions. Like,
I will say though, if you're ever just having a bad day, you turn on Picture to Burn and sing it, and like that southern twang she has in that first album, it's very healing. I'm going to tell you that.
I find immense hope in some of her songs, especially the folklore ones, like Invisible String. I'm thinking of like, it's just, there are so many different feelings and so many complications around it. And usually it is around like romantic parts of your life. And here's where, man, I hate to follow up you guys, but also I'm going to call back to the Four Loves, because, C.S. Lewis' favorite book is Four Loves. That's my thing, I guess. But when he talks about how all of the human loves are just reflections of the divine love, the better love. I think how we process breakup and how it feels, that pain, says a lot about our love with God and when we choose other things. Am I equating our romance to, true religion and God and saying this is just as important as God? Absolutely not. But I think it should tell us something. This hurt now, this temporary hurt with our relationships, tells us something about the divine and what it means when we choose something else other than love. And maybe not romantic love I'm talking about here, but I think there's a correlation there, and I think it should allow us to think deeper. Hey, sometimes you just need to be upset that you went through a bad breakup. Sometimes you just need that, and that's good. But sometimes I think it's okay to take it a little bit further and even contemplate, hey, this is not about God, but what does my feelings in this kind of love tell me about the divine love? And just kind of think about those things. I think it's also a healthy meditation practice, perhaps. Okay. Any other comments, thoughts?
Just one last thing. I'm going to go deep back many centuries. There was a writer, Basil of Caesarea, Saint Basil the Great, and he wrote a series of treatises to young men on the value of Greek letters. And it's not just about like learning Greek language, but it's about the value in like even engaging with things like ancient Greek philosophy or classical or ancient Greek mythology and epics and stuff like that. And he reminds us to be like the bee who searches for the good pollen and not like the fly who swarms around the garbage. And it is possible for us to, even in things that stand but look as though they appear to stand in opposition to something that we might hold to be of ultimate significance as Christians, as people of faith, there is always a capacity in something, even in our recognitions of its shortcomings in relation to ultimate reality, to be transformed and to come to a better understanding of that which is good and beautiful and loving and perfect. Come to a deeper appreciation for God, even in just our recognition of how this particular thing can come up short.
Man, yeah, amen, hallelujah. I don't have anything else. I'm going to go ahead and go to the wrap up for this one. Do it. Guys, we like to end with a recommendation. And just like I did in the beginning, I'm going to wreck our plans for recommendations and say it has to be music related. Recommend me another album other than the Torture Poets department. It doesn't matter if it's Taylor Swift or not. Just another album. I'll start because I kind of mentioned it earlier. Judah and the Lion, Pep Talks, fantastic album. Not my favorite album, but man, it's so good. It's so emotionally rich and also fun. So I think it's a good one. I got to uplift that, shout that out. Claire, I'll let you go next. Do you have an album you want to shout out?
So other than Taylor Swift, my other favorite artist is probably Panic at the Disco.
Good.
And I would say my favorite of his albums, their album, whatever, is Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. So go check that one out.
Good one too. Father Jonathan.
Ooh, I'm thinking, I'm not sure like if this is like something that everyone knows, but it's something that I go back to. I just kind of like the sound of it. But the either I and Love and You or The Carpenter by the Abbott Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man, that's also great, excellent stuff. Man. Now I need to listen to more of them. Actually, they spend a lot of time in the Carolinas, so we should go see them sometime. That's what we should do. Brandon.
Hi. I will recommend Out of Time by REM. It's from 94, 95, something like that. Losing My Religion, Shiny Happy People, stuff. Country Feedback, a lot of good existential kind of religious-y songs, that garage or college rock sound. So go check it out.
Man, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, thank you for listening to, I think, the longest episode of Systematic Geekology. You guys rock. We had to. It's Taylor. What geekier subject is there than Taylor Swift?
Have you heard Swifties on TikTok?
That's true. That's true. They get way more hardcore than most Star Wars fans I know, even. So, yeah. And we didn't get that hardcore. We didn't go Star Wars or Swiftie level, or those Swiftie levels. We went our own Swiftie.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh,
all right.
Prophecy is Anakin Skywalker coded. I'm just going to.
Oh, accurate statement. Go listen to the prophecy. Think about Anakin Skywalker. Meditate on that. And while you're doing it, go ahead and rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser. That helps us a lot. If you're on Spotify, hit the 5 stars, hit the bell so you get a notification for every episode we do. That would help a lot as well. Again, I want to do a shout out to Jeannie Mattingly. You rock. And of course, we want to remind everyone one extremely important thing, and that's to remember that we're all a chosen people. The geekdom of priest.
Hi, my name is TJ. I'm here to tell you about the Systematic Geekology shop. That's where we post all of our merch. It is hosted on Creator Spring, and we have a ton of really cool merch, mostly clothing. We have hats, extra soft t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, and more. Our hosts wear them all the time. It's actually super comfy. We have glassware, mugs, which everybody loves a good mug. Fill out your cupboard. Get rid of some old ones, which is the part that I never do. That's why I have too many cups. We have cloth bags, posters, and it's really stuff. We like to put our icons on there. We like to put quotes, things we come up with, and it's cool. It's a cool way, and a lot of it is pretty subtle too, to show support for one of your favorite shows. And my personal favorite is actually our SG dad cap, which I haven't been reluctant to buy it because now I have to wear hats at work, and then I get tired of wearing hats. But it's really cool. It's really understated. It is our logo right here, and then it says Systematic Geekology on the back. It's great. It's a really good hat. We have a few of them floating around. Check it out. And if we could all just rock the SG dad cap in public, I think that'd be pretty sweet.
Hey friends, this is your pal Will Rose, and I have some exciting news. Systematic Geekology will return to Theology Beer Camp this year, October 17th through the 19th in Denver, Colorado. And we hope that you can join us. We are a part of Theology Beer Camp in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, at my home church in my hometown. And that year, Theology Beer Camp was called the God Pods. And then we were in Missouri, a part of the Geek stage. Yes, we had a whole entire Geek stage where we had workshops and speakers and had incredible conversations. And Theology Beer Camp last year was called the God Pods Strike Back. So you kind of see where this is going. And so this year, the theme is the return of the God Pods. And so if you head over to Eventbrite and follow God Pods 2024, or hop over to Instagram, follow it there. And if you enter promo code Geekshire, you see what we did there? Yeah. Wilbo Baggins approves. If you enter Geekshire, all caps, no spaces, you'll get $25 off your ticket price. Geekshire, all caps, no spaces, Geekshire. Yeah, say it with me, Geekshire. Enter that. You get money off your ticket, and you can join us and hang out and drink beer and have great food. And even if you don't drink beer, you can have incredible food and beverages and conversations with your favorite hosts here at Systematic Geekology. The Geek stage is growing. I'm proud of that, and we thank Trip for this opportunity. We hope to see you at Theology Beer Camp, the Return of the God Pods 2024.